And the reproduction of knowledge requires financial security. And when you're in a situation where you're not getting paid a living wage, it's very, very difficult to achieve that financial security. So for me, that's definitely the major policy change that I would love graduate programs across the country to adopt.
Welcome to the Personal Finance for PhDs podcast, a higher education in personal finance. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Roberts, a financial educator specializing in early career PhDs and founder of Personal Finance for PhDs. This podcast is for PhDs and PhDs-to-be who want to explore the hidden curriculum of finances to learn the best practices for money management, career advancement, and advocacy for yourself and others. This is Season 15, Episode 5, and today I'm sharing the micro-interviews I recorded at 2 higher education conferences this past summer. The conference attendees, virtually all of whom work at universities and most of whom have PhDs themselves, responded to this prompt. What policy at your current university or one you worked at or attended in the past would you change to improve the financial lives of the PhD students and or postdocs? Listen through the episode for numerous ideas for policy changes to advocate for at your university. The 2 conferences I attended were the Graduate Career Consortium Annual Meeting, or GCC, and the Higher Education Financial Wellness Alliance Summit, or HEFWA Summit. GCC is primarily attended by university staff members working with PhD students and postdocs in career and professional development. The HEFWA Summit is attended by university staff members working in financial wellness and financial aid across undergraduate and graduate populations. These 2 conferences were excellent networking opportunities for me on top of the built-in professional development. However, there are plenty of universities who were not represented at these conferences. Would you please consider recommending my financial education seminars and workshops at your university? My most popularly requested events for the upcoming academic year are How to Survive and Thrive Financially in Graduate School or your postdoc, How to Not Hate Your Fellowship During Tax Season, and Up-Level Your Cash Flow as a Graduate Student or Postdoc. Please direct an appropriate potential host within your graduate school, postdoc office, grad student association, etc. to pfforphds.com/financial-education, where they can learn more. Thank you in advance. You can find the show notes for this episode at pfforphds.com/S15E5. Without further ado, here are the micro-interviews recorded at GCC and the HEFWA Summit.
Okay, so I'm Karen Lawton-Dunn, and I'm at Iowa State University. And what policy would you change when your current or former university campus to improve financial life for graduate students or postdocs? Since I work primarily with international students, I think I would try to change the understanding of faculty and staff of all of the different priorities that international students have with their money, and so that they really will go without food, without meals, so that they're able to send some money home to their families that are also in need and struggling with food and housing. And I think that we need to be understanding of that and not punishing them for doing that.
I'm Laura Farrell-Wortman. I'm the Assistant Director for Academic Programs with the University of Arizona Cancer Center. So I think that the policy that I would change would be to exempt PhD students from required fees, because I think that it really is, important revenue generation for the university, but it does feel a little bit like kind of like the company store, right, where you are getting the money for working there, but then you're turning right around and giving the money back to the university. So it doesn't feel like it's a really sustainable system. And I would be interested to see what kind of revenue generation they're actually getting from the PhD students and whether or not that could be found in an alternative means.
So my name is Kaylee Steen. I work at the University of Michigan Medical School, and my advice for changing a policy at our institution that we're actually implementing is ensuring that all postdocs at least make the minimum NIH stipend for their years of experience at the university. I think is really key. And another policy that we have not implemented would be that postdocs receive the same retirement benefits as the rest of our staff with the 2-to-1 matching.
My name's Chris Smith. I manage the Office of Postdoc Affairs at Virginia Tech. And one policy I'd like to see change really across the landscape is treating postdocs more like employees with employee benefits, especially retirement matching. Some institutions do that. We are one of them, but a lot of them don't. And I think it's important for them to kind of set them up for success.
My name is Wei Xu. I'm the Academic and Career Advisor for a Biomedical Sciences graduate program within the Tulane School of Medicine. I think we can actually provide postdocs with more training programs as well as social benefits and retirement benefits so that they feel more supported by the school and by their training program.
My name is Beth Hunsaker with the University of Utah's Financial Wellness Center. I'm the Associate Director. The policy that I would want to see changed is to have cost of living adjustments. How much it costs to have rent when that's over half of what their stipend is and they're not able to go and work more elsewhere doesn't work for their families.
My name is Chris Ham from the University at Buffalo. And the first prompt, it was asking about what policy would you change in your current or previous campus-approved financial life of grad students. And for me, just working with graduate students, noticing the opportunities for GA, TAs, and RA positions. We do have minimum amount of financing for those positions that are already agreed upon, but I think it's not consistent across the board for each of the different departments. And also too, since it's a larger university, it's very siloed as far as what information is available to graduate students. So I think being able to have that be a little bit more transparent, giving them the opportunity to be more competitive, get themselves these positions, and also make them aware of it, because a lot of times it's only specifically in departments. And I think it's a really great opportunity, because that's something that I did when I was in grad school as well, to help fund my education and get my experiences.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Schnoes. I'm the Director of Career and Professional Development at the Science Communication Lab. One of the things that I think about a lot is how postdocs at different institutions are often under these weird sort of employment categories. They're often in different employment categories at the same institution. They often don't have access to things, even though they're considered employees, they're also considered trainees, so they also often don't have access to things like sometimes even health care, but potentially child care support or retirement accounts, and all of these things are ridiculous. These are people with PhDs who are acting as professionals, and they should be able to be treated like, the employees that they actually are, as opposed to some weird quasi, none of the above, which means they get none of the benefits and all of the work of being a postdoc, sometimes for years on end, doing amazing work, making the university hum, but then they've sacrificed finances, potentially health care, retirement accounts, the ability to have children. All of these are things that policies could actually help address.
So this is Catherine Sawyer-Vidrine from Notre Dame, and if I were to change one policy to make life easier on graduate students and postdocs, it would be to provide childcare for children under 2 years old, because there is almost none in our area.
My name is Peter Myers. I'm at Washington University in St. Louis. The one policy that I would change for postdocs would be to make them all employees of the university.
My name is Elizabeth Eichman. I'm the program coordinator for postdoctoral community engagement at Washington University in St. Louis, and I was a graduate student at St. Louis University. And if I could change one policy for my former university's campus to improve the financial life of the grad students there, it would be immediate graduate assistantship raises. The wages currently are not even living wages. Graduate assistants there are paid only 9 months out of the year instead of 12. So not only implementing a raise, but also instituting a year-round salary, which also includes year-round access to health insurance, which is not currently policy there on campus.
My name is Maggie Nedesheim Hoffman. I'm the Associate Director of Career Diversity for the Humanities Without Walls Consortium, which is a Mellon-funded, grant-funded project at space at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, but I am located at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I think the policy advice that I would give, and more systemically across, higher education across the nation, would be to recommend to universities that you consider one of the benefits for graduate students enrolled in your schools to give them access to starting their own 403B plans while they're working on their master's degrees or their PhDs, and making that a real benefit of, if you're at a public university that has, that where grad students are organized, making that a part of your union contract negotiations, and at private institutions, right? I mean, it's not a heavy cost to the institution at all, just to give them a framework or a structure to start investing into those 403B plans. So that would be one of the policies that I would advocate as a shift in our higher education ecosphere. Yeah.
So my name is Brady Crean and I work at the University of Iowa, and the policy that I would change on our campus is to actually give us greater latitude to provide resources and information about finances for graduate students, and particularly related to the tax implications of fellowships that they win and how they need to prepare in advance to deal with those.
Hi everyone, my name is Yasmin Martinez. I am a Events Education and Emergency Response Coordinator at the University of Colorado Boulder. I work at the Basic Needs Center, and one policy that I would change about the university campus to improve the financial life of our graduate and postdoc students is to provide more formal education on basic needs in general. So that can include how to get housing before they start college. It's also how to budget with groceries and other expenses. And I would also advocate to increase the stipend, just because oftentimes that's not even enough for students to cover their living expenses.
Hi, I'm Katie Peplin from Thrive PhD. You can find me at thrive-phd.com. I work with graduate students all around the world on being a scholar and a human. What policy would be useful? I think that the biggest policy that universities can put in place is transparency. I know so many students who have been caught in between different policies, or they weren't aware that certain things apply to them when they actually did, or they lost out on money because things weren't well communicated. And I know that it's extra work for universities to make some of those things transparent, but the more information that's readily and easily accessible, the less grad students have to depend on their departments or their advisors who might not be well informed to let them know about opportunities. So, transparency.
Emily here for a brief interlude. These action items are for you if you recently switched or will soon switch onto non-W-2 fellowship income as a grad student, postdoc, or postbac, and are not having income tax withheld from your stipend or salary. Action item number 1. Fill out the estimated tax worksheet on page 8 of IRS Form 1040-ES. This worksheet will estimate how much income tax you will owe in 2023 and tell you whether you are required to make manual tax payments on a quarterly basis. The next quarterly estimated tax due date is September 15th, 2023. Action item number 2. Whether you are required to make estimated tax payments or pay a lump sum at tax time, open a separate named savings account for your future tax payments. Calculate the fraction of each paycheck that will ultimately go toward tax and set up an automated recurring transfer from your checking account to your tax savings account to prepare for that bill. This is what I call a system of self-withholding, and I suggest putting it in place starting with your very first fellowship paycheck so that you don't get into a financial bind when the payment deadline arrives. If you need some help with the estimated tax worksheet or want to ask me a question, please consider joining my workshop, Quarterly Estimated Tax for Fellowship Recipients. It explains every line of the worksheet and answers the common questions that PhD trainees have about estimated tax. The workshop includes 1.75 hours of video content, a spreadsheet, and invitations to at least one live Q&A call each quarter this tax year. If you want to purchase this workshop as an individual, go to pfforphds.com/QEtax. Now back to our interview.
I'm Sasha Goldman. I am the Director of PhD Resources at Boston University. And if I could change a policy on my current university campus to improve the financial life of the graduate students and postdocs, I would give everyone 12 months of funding and everyone more money.
Okay, my name is Joseph Gonzalez, and I'm the Senior Director in the Office of Student Financial Assistance at the University of Miami. And a policy that I would change, and this isn't specifically related to my current campus, it's based on my experience at different campuses. It's how people like to pay fellowships, especially when there's a research component to it. They tend not to use the employment side of it, where it would be there would be tax withholdings, because I believe sometimes faculty think that it's a way to sidestep the tax requirement, when they don't realize that it's actually basically pushing it down the line for the student to deal with later. And sometimes, often students don't realize that there is a tax liability that comes with their financial aid. And by the time they found out, they haven't saved money for that liability. So it puts them in this financial crunch, sort of, once their taxes have been filed. Or they don't claim it, and then it just gets pushed further down the line. So I would like faculty and universities in general to have, I don't know if it's more of a process that are aligned, because it changes from one university to the other how these are handled.
My name is Alex Embry. I'm the program manager at the Office for Financial Success for the University of Missouri. And the policy that I would want to have changed is that graduate student payment is in accordance with the value that they bring to the university. When they are operating in a teaching capacity or grants, they need to be paid accordingly.
My name is Robbie Pearson, and I'm the Director of Graduate Career Development and Postdoc Affairs at SMU in Dallas, Texas. And in terms of policies that I would be interested in, like revising around graduate education to improve the financial life of grad students and postdocs, I'm really interested in time to degree. I would like to see more transparency around how long it takes to earn a doctoral degree, and I'd like to see policies and initiatives around making sure that that's a reasonable amount of time, right? So in some fields, it could take 8, 9, 10 years to earn a doctoral degree, or longer. And there's some case that that's important for the intellectual development of the scholar and for the research that they're contributing to. But I also want to balance that against the reality that graduate students should be thinking of their time in grad school as an investment, not only into the intellectual development and into their field, but also into their financial futures. So getting them into the workforce in a reasonable amount of time is a really good thing from my perspective.
Stevie Eberly, Executive Director and Assistant Dean of Biopsych Careers at Stanford University School of Medicine. So what policy would you change on your current or former university campus to improve the financial life of graduate students and postdocs? We have an entry-level class that all incoming graduate students have to take. And then there is a kind of an intro group that postdocs attend. And I really do wish we had financial training and planning built into the trainings. especially in the Bay Area, because it's so expensive and you can't quite understand it until you're there. So I really would like somebody who can very directly explain the market and directly explain how to navigate it and have the resources to develop that. That being said, I think it is the administration's responsibility to also help build better structures for that, which we are working on, I will say. So we have subsidized housing and that type of thing. But subsidized housing is still very expensive. So I would like to have better pay, better caps, better minimum salaries, and better coaching for faculty on how to treat and treat students and postdocs more respectfully and more like adults, and give them better tools for negotiation. Because I do think sometimes faculty just don't know. Sometimes they do, and that's the problem. But sometimes they don't. So I'd like to do better education on equitable offers and better develop those kind of baseline expectations for pay.
I'm Derek Addig. I work in the Graduate College at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and I'd like to see it be consistent that tuition and fees and the total cost of graduate education is completely transparent to people before they apply and when they're making the decision to attend, so they can understand the cost and weigh that against outcomes they hope to achieve.
My name is Michael Dedman. I'm the Research Director at the National Endowment for Financial Education and a PhD candidate in political science at Syracuse University. I can definitely say for me that the single policy change that I would love for my graduate program, which is still sort of considering to adopt, is to raise wages and raise stipends for graduate students. My department recently unionized, even though I'm an advanced graduate student and no longer in the bargaining unit. It's something that's very, very close to my heart that I think is very important. It's beneficial for universities in terms of recruitment and retention. It reduces time to degree. It reduces attrition. We all know the benefits of it, in addition to the fact that the work that the students put in is what makes the universities work. They're teaching students, they're producing research, they're publishing papers. It's a beneficial situation for everybody. And the reproduction of knowledge requires financial security. And when you're in a situation where you're not getting paid a living wage, it's very, very difficult to achieve that financial security. So for me, that's definitely the major policy change that I would love graduate programs across the country to adopt.
Hi, I'm Dr. Byron Kerr with Financial Aid and Scholarships at Texas State University, and I received my PhD from Florida State University in Tallahassee. And what I would like to see changed on college campuses is, back in the day at any rate, my stipend check for my PhD always came in a month after the payment deadline. So I always generated a $100 late fee every single semester. So it was always costing me money to be employed.
My name is Anna Schufelt. I work at Duke University overseeing the educational programming and outreach for the Office of Student Loans and Personal Finance. A policy change that I would love to see come to my campus is guaranteed housing for our international master's and graduate students. These are folks who have some of the largest complexities going on in their lives and also some of the greatest financial constraints with that international student status.
My name is Annie Maxfield, and I am at UT Austin in Texas Career Engagement. And I would say the biggest financial policy problem is that tuition has continually become higher and higher over the years, yet graduate student stipends are not increasing at that rate. And so we know the university is taking in more funds. However, the distribution of those funds is inequitable in terms of how graduate student labor is actually compensated.
So my name is Phil Schumann. I'm from Indiana University. The one thing I'd actually like to see for a lot of grad students throughout higher ed is more access to childcare, and whether or not that's temporary, permanent, whatever, but just the ability for grad students to be able to focus on their studies, their academics, when they have childcare issues come up, just because we've seen a lot of childcare and daycare cost issues, them closing on campus. But I think it's one thing, it's a huge barrier that could potentially prevent grad students from getting over that hurdle. So.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Sonali Majumdar. I'm the Assistant Dean for Professional Development in the Grad Futures program of the Graduate School of Princeton University. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what kind of inclusive policies university campuses could have to support their international graduate students and postdoc population on their financial wellness. And there are two things that come to mind. One is transparency on what kind of research fellowships are open to international graduate students and postdocs, and a lot of the universities do have research discovery, fellowship discovery databases like Pivot. Hopkins has a public dashboard that lists all sorts of fellowships at the graduate and postdoc level by citizenship accessibility as well. And the other thing is experiential learning. What can we do to make experiential learning more accessible to international population? One pathway that does work is internships and or fellowships that are funded by the institution that the students are working at. And that relates to work policies of how much academic hours, on top of academic hours, students are available to work at university offices or other units on internships. And so there's definitely some interesting new programs that are helping out in this arena, and I hope more universities would intentionally think about accessibility gap for their international population on experiential learning. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Hertenstein, college professor at DePaul University, received my PhD at UC Berkeley in 2002. It may have changed since I graduated, but the policy I would change was to actually teach some financial literacy advice and financial wellness to PhDs and make that a priority during orientation and make sure that people actually knew that that was available to help them.
Hi, my name is Alex Yen. I am a postdoc at Boston University in the Professional Development and Postdoctoral Affairs Office. The policy that I would change or wish could change is that I hope that more universities will allow graduate students who take time off to keep their student health insurance during that time off. So that way they can take care of their mental health while they are recovering or taking some time away.
Listeners, thank you for joining me for this episode. I have a gift for you. You know that final question I ask of all my guests regarding their best financial advice? I have collected short summaries of all the answers ever given on the podcast into a document that is updated with each new episode release. You can gain access to it by registering for my mailing list at pfforphds.com/advice. Would you like to access transcripts or videos of each episode? I link the show notes for each episode from pfforphds.com/podcast. See you in the next episode, and remember, you don't have to have a PhD to succeed with personal finance, but it helps. The music is Stages of Awakening by Poddington Bear from the Free Music Archive and is shared under CC by NC. Podcast editing by Dr. Lourdes Bobbio and show notes creation by Dr. Jill Hoffman.